Welcome to Bases at the Barge, Part 2, with Max Spiers. This is Max's first public appearance, and he was very nervous because this is something which he can be triggered on. So it's a great deal of effort he's gone to come and display and talk and take these questions. So at the Coronation Hall, we have Max Spiers for the Bases Project. Everybody out, smokers, yeah. Bloody ex-military latecomer again. Right, just to remind people that there is a Meet the Speakers at the Barge at 6 o'clock when we will all transfer to the Barge, where we will announce the raffle. And there's very exciting prizes for you to win. You brought yours, didn't you? Yeah. You didn't forget. Did you? Thank God for that. They don't use spaceships, they use interdimensional time-traveling portals. For God's sake. Right, so that was Max and Sarah, and now we have Max. And do you want to start with just James Casbolt?
We can do that.
Do you want to do that? Are you on?
Yeah.
Are you on?
You want to ask me some questions?
Right, this is the second part of the Bases at the Barge, which is held at the Coronation Hall. And we'll be retired. Afterwards, you'll have an opportunity to have a social over drinks and things with the speakers at the Barge Inn. And some people will be going up to Knapp Hill and having a night watch to watch flares being launched over the military plane of Salisbury Plain and then calling them flying saucers landing. Believe you me. Anyway, this is a military training area. We're surrounded by military bases. The Illuminati live just to the left of us over there. The Illuminati live over there. But right here, we've got Max. And Max and James Casbolt are a couple of British super soldiers. Do you want to describe what that means?
It's certainly not a word that I would ever use, and I would never call myself like super anything. I think it starts to get too much involved in ego when you supersize yourself like that. But it definitely, there was military presence in what happens and what the agenda was to create and what was going on with that. I think yeah.
That's got the ball rolling. So, Max, over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I suppose the best thing for me to do is to start off explaining my connection with James Casbolt. And that began, I was born in Brighton, in East Sussex, in England, here. And I grew up there until I was 8-9 years old in Lewes, which is just outside there. But I was going back and forth from Brighton to Lewes. And it just so happened that James Casbolt was in Brighton at the same time as me for those years, those period of time. Now there's a swimming pool in Brighton called the Prince Regent swimming pool, and I used to go there with my dad, and they have these flumes, a black one and a red one and a yellow one, and you kind of come down and you go into the water, and they have arcade games. And so I used to go there when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, and they had one of the video games that I used to play all the time was called Double Dragon, and I used to go and play it, and I got talking to this boy who was there all the time, and I used to see him there occasionally, and we'd play this game. And then subsequently, years on, we recognized each other. About 2007, we'd recognize each other. Said, "Oh yeah, I remember you from there. I remember you from Brighton." And so we acknowledged each other. I had been looking into esoteric, occult subjects since I was very, very little, because I always knew that there was something that wasn't right. I was having experiences when I was 3, 4, 5, 6 in my bedroom. It would always happen when the sun went down, and when it was time for me to go to bed, I would be aware always there was something. I mean, it's like the boogeyman sort of feeling, or the bogeyman sort of feeling, like there was something underneath the bed, or there was something in the cupboard, or there was something around me. When I would start to go to sleep, it would make itself more aware. It would make itself more aware to me. And what I feel now is that there were charmed objects put and placed in my bedroom that where the house was built as well. Numerologically, it was 93 as well, which is a very specific number, numerologically to Crowley's OTO. So the number and where the name of the road was High Down Road. Now, High Down is a paradox. You can't have high down, so that's also connected to disassociating the mind, which I'll get into. So there was definitely presences in my room from when I was very young, and I was aware that when I would first start drifting off to go to sleep, I would feel myself. This would be every night. I would feel myself slipping out of my body, out above the roof of the house, out, and go up and up and up through layers and layers and layers of clouds. This is going to sound strange, but I suppose it all does. When I get above the top layer of the clouds, there was a stereotypical looking type of witch with a pointed hat on and a long nose with sort of warts on the nose, and she'd be laughing. There was two of them. They'd be laughing at me, and I had that feeling in your stomach when you're falling in dreams. I could constantly have that, and they would be standing around me, sort of like maybe Macbeth sort of type imagery from Shakespeare. They'd be standing around, and then they'd all sort of come around, grab hold of me, and then I'd wake up. So this was a recurring thing, and my family goes back for the last certainly 100 years. We're all involved in the occult in some way or another. Not involved in the occult. When I say the occult just means hidden. So it's not. I'm not saying there were black magicians, black witches, or anything like that. But there was certainly a lot of rune stones readings, tarot card readings. I learned astrology and tarot when I was very young. My mum was sort of Wiccan, so I sort of learned from that. So when I became aware, as I got older, 6, 7, 8 years old, so there was an interim period. Between the ages of 5 and 6, my parents had decided that they were going to move to California, move to Los Angeles. So they just, out of the blue, upped and moved. So from the ages of between 5 and 6, I was living in just off Sepulveda Boulevard, which is in the Valley area of Los Angeles. Now, there is, I think, Andrew Bishago talks about the Mars jump rooms, which are situated on 999 Sepulveda Avenue. And I lived right near there. And now the jump rooms, supposedly, and this ties in from my own investigation, the jump rooms are only available to be, children are only available to go through them. Something to do with the molecular construction of a child before the age of puberty that allows them to go through this sort of like, from my memory, it's literally, there was two ways, literally like a door. So you'd go in through the door, stand in the door. It'd be like maybe a lift. You'd stand there, then you'd feel this incredible feeling, like you were being completely disconnected from everything. And then when you'd come out, you'd be in somewhere completely different. So I had been to Phoenix a lot, and Phoenix, when you look at Phoenix, Arizona, it looks very much like what the imagery of what Mars looked like to me when I was shown it. So I was confused because I was taken to Phoenix when I was a kid, and this also happened. So I thought I was actually going from one state to another, but then some other things that happened told me otherwise. For this, I do come from so my background is Celtic and French. On my father's side, he's a descendant from Charlemagne, which is a French nobility family that goes back to the south of France from about 600, 700, 800 AD, and it's a royal sort of lineage line that comes through France, but it came through, that they sort of migrated, they took control of each spot and they migrated to another spot. So if you imagine, they began in Babylon, conquered Babylon, went over to Sumeria, conquered Sumeria, went to Egypt. So each one of these are the same people. So if we're understanding these are the same families coming through. From Egypt, they went on to and created the Roman Empire. So when I'm talking about when someone says the Third Reich or the Fourth Reich, it's actually 10th, 11th, 12th. So these are the same beings that have done that. And pre-Atlantean times. So Second World War was key to understanding to have the complete understanding of how to create a mind-controlled slave. Now, if you go back and look at the Egyptian Book of the Dead, there are actually instructions within that book, and that's a book anyone can pick up from any bookstore. It explains how to do that. But the sort of like the modern Nazis, perfected it. They perfected it. And I think that they got the information of how to perfect and shatter the human mind from the tall greys or the zeta greys. There are two forms of greys. There are the short greys that seem to me to be lackeys. They seem to do what they're told. And then there's the taller ones, sort of more gangly looking, which are like this tall. They're also lackeys, but they seem to have superiority over the smaller ones. So this is all in a hierarchy structure. Everything is done hierarchically because that is that's the mindset of these particular beings. So from how I understand it, this present state that we're in, you have the Anunnaki consciousness, stream of consciousness that is pretty much in control of this planet at the moment. What they've tried to do is make us think that the planet Earth itself is not that important, that we're just some rock somewhere with evolving beings on it, and but that this is the only place, and that nothing, when in fact Gaia or Earth is the jewel in the crown. It's the actual jewel, the most important thing, and everything actually is revolving around and focused on this. Earth is actually anchoring everything else down from ascending. This planet is anchoring it down. So that's why all eyes are on this planet at the moment, because when we release it, when the human beings here release it, it releases everybody else. So they're watching for that to happen. I wanted to go a little bit into, which is what I know about because I've had to study a lot, into mind control in general and how it's done and what happens with that. For these specific bloodlines and these breeding bloodlines, they have to take a child before the age of 3. So to shatter and honeycomb the mind, the children have to be put into extreme trauma. So any way that you can extremely traumatize a child before the age of 3, electric shock, rape, extreme physical abuse, any torture like that. What will happen when they were testing out the breaking points of human beings at Tavistock? The Tavistock Institute originally was set up to work out the breaking point of human beings. So that once the human being breaks, it shatters the top of the spine here, it shatters that and sort of honeycombs into many other possibilities for personalities. Because the body doesn't want to go, or the mind and the soul doesn't want to go through that trauma, so it separates itself off. And so what they had, the Nazi doctors, Mengele and Himmler and the SS crew had worked out, and they'd got information from the Zeta of exactly how to do it, exactly how to program it. So then once the mind is shattered, then you can then, in each of the honeycombs, which would be another personality or another alter, can be specifically programmed and to anything that you want it to be. None of the other personalities are aware of the other ones. So you could have somebody with so it's called MPD, multiple personality disorder, but more recently it's known as dissociative identity disorder, because it's not another personality really, it's another version of the identity of the person. So it's not another personality. The primary personality is the front personality, which is all of us communicating to each other now. That's the front alter personality. Is not aware of, if that had happened to you, is not aware of any of the other ones. Now, the programmers themselves have ways of using color, tone, hand signals, frequencies to be able to switch to another one, to another personality through, so like I said, with the honeycomb is there, and switch to another one. So there could be one personality, which is the front one, that didn't have any abilities whatsoever to ride a motorcycle, to shoot, to be a sniper, to do any of these things, but another one, if it's then activated, is then completely able to do it and has all these abilities. So you can, that way was the way to be able to create an undetectable mind-controlled slave, because the other personalities are not aware of the other ones. The key of, okay, so I mean, I didn't really want to get too graphic with it, because some of it is really hard to talk about, and so sodomy is one of the main keys to doing it, because what happens is when you rape a child before the age of 3, what happens is it sends electrical signals up the spine, which then explode at the top of the spine, and then that's the easiest and fastest way to create multiple alters. It's called vasovagal shock, and they also call it in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it's known as the Key of Solomon. So that's another way of putting it. I'm just trying to lead on from that. Mengele was at the head of doing that. He was the one who was the head of the main scientist for doing that and understanding it and learning it. There's a lot of, I don't know if everybody knows who Michael Aquino is. He is directly connected as well to that. A lot of the people in positions of power now, certainly all the Bush family, which are actually the Bauer family, which are actually German Nazi family. So when you had Project Paperclip, I don't know if you know what that is, but Project Paperclip was when at the end of the so essentially we didn't win the Second World War as it says in the textbooks. What actually happened is that they went underground and then made it appear that they had lost, so that they could go underground, continue with the work through Project Paperclip. They took all of their top scientists, military strategists, and placed them in South America and North America. In 1947. 1947 seems to be a major key date for them, because so you have the Roswell incident happening then, you have the CIA beginning then, you have the NSA at the end of that year beginning then, and you have Aleister Crowley dying on that year. And I think this all has something to do with a ritual that was done, which is connected to Hubbard and Scientology and Jack Parsons. I don't know if anyone knows who Jack Parsons is. Jack Parsons was a genius rocket scientist who was working in Southern California at JPL Laboratories, which is known as Jet Propulsion Laboratories, but in truth, it means Jack Parsons Laboratories. What he was trying to do was find out the ultimate weapon to be created. And what he was using fetuses and using nuclear technology and fetuses from baby fetuses at the same time and combining them together. So they essentially wanted to have at the end a combination of ritual, black magic, and technology used at the same time, and that would be the ultimate weapon. And essentially we've got that going on now. So I was saying earlier when Sarah was speaking, any of the outer heads, any of the outer rulers that we're seeing at the moment, any of the prime ministers, any of the aristocracy are only the outer heads. So certainly for the British rulership, if you look at the symbol, you'll see a crown, and very, very often through the crown there'll be a sword, which is the Templars' way of telling you that they rule behind, in the shadows, behind the aristocracy. The Saxe-Coburg-Gotha line, which usurped the British throne, which they called themselves the Windsors, that certainly isn't their name. They're a German family Victoria was the first one who came and stole so they're Germans. They've been German for the last 120 years. So Germany really is at the rulership of this country, and they are still today. They've just done it subversively, and they've just done it underneath the radar. And what in their mind, what better way to do it is than to disappear and then get everybody in a comfortable position where we think everything's all right, and then hit in the last second, which I think is really what's going on now. They're not able to hide themselves as much as they could do anymore because of the frequency of the planet raising. They can't hide anymore as they used to be able to. So there was what they wanted to do after the end of the Second World War, which was really about money and was really about testing out the collective trauma. So we all, as a species on this planet, we're all traumatized. We're all traumatized collectively through the wars that have gone on. Outside of the individual trauma that goes on, as a human species, we're traumatized. I noticed, just as an example, walking down the high street yesterday where I live, and a bang went off, and everybody, I could sense the fear. There's an underlying fear with everybody on this planet at the moment that something is sort of about to happen, but they don't know what it is. So you've got a lot of people who were speaking out about these things now sort of running to the solace of Christianity or a religion because they don't know what else to do. The Christian religion, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes. All this stuff is just from my understanding and my research, which has been 15 years of research, because I needed to find out what happened to me in 2008. I think I'll briefly go into what happened to me in 2008. I knew that people had told me throughout the years that sometimes that when I would speak about something, or I would watch a movie with somebody, or read a magazine, or read a book, and then they would then say to me, I'd say, "Oh, should we put this movie on again?" And they would say, "Well, you just watched this yesterday, or you just did this yesterday," and I would have no recall of it. So I knew there was something wrong there, so I'd be missing time. Or what I think it is, actually, a lot of the modern movies that come out immediately have trigger in there. So they're layered movies. So when certain people watch it, that will trigger you into a slightly other altered state, and then the movie itself can then program you, and you would have no idea at all that you'd been programmed. So I watched Oblivion for the first time, and I had absolutely no recall of the movie at the end of it. I just watched it, and then it finished. I had watched it with Sarah, and then when it was finished, I didn't have any clue what happened in the movie. But it certainly had affected me on an emotional level, but I didn't. And if you think of how movies are laid out, they're laid out in a dream sequence sort of state. So all movies are there to affect the subconscious, because it's not like one camera. Like when we're walking around, it's one camera moving wherever you are. A movie is dream sequence, like sketch. Like we're in a dream, it's like that. So they're doing that, and that's the Hollywood, which is the holy wood, which is they used to create magic wands, staffs out of this particular wood that grows in Hollywood. I used to live in Hollywood, and this particular wood stinks, actually, and Hollywood isn't a particularly nice place. But that's why, and this wood that they use is called the wood of illusion. So the illusion is created and stems from Southern California, and it sort of pervades out through. So they're using the U.S. as a testing ground. So they test it out. They'll test out different things there in the U.S., usually on the West Coast for certain things, and the East Coast for other things. East Coast is more European, so they'll test out different things there. And then if it worked, they'll try it in other countries. If it didn't work, they'll leave it. So in 2008, what had happened? I had searched and searched. I'd been speaking to James Casbolt for a couple of years, and we had come to some conclusions. We remembered certain things. My only memory of him then was when we were children. I don't remember him as in the in-between time. I recognized him when we saw each other, but I don't remember him only when we were kids. There was this particular swimming pool. They tend to use big bodies of water because water is a stargate in and of itself. Water is needed to use frequencies and vibrations. So I have this memory. I have a memory of this, and it's strange. I had got changed after I'd gone swimming, and there was a door that was on the right-hand side of where the swimming pool, which is the Prince Regent swimming pool in Brighton. And I always remembered it was a locked door. And somebody who worked there, who was looked like they worked for the swimming pool with a whistle or whatever like that, and they sort of ushered me over this way. They said that my dad was going to, because I was there with my dad. They said that he was going to be here, or he was somewhere in the changing room. Well, I got taken through this door that was always locked. As I went through the door, there was a spiral staircase on the left-hand side there. So I go through the door, spiral staircase here, spiral staircase on this side. I was taken down the spiral staircase, and there was somebody else on this side going down the spiral staircase. So we walked down. I didn't see that person. I was just, as I'd gone through the door, I felt sort of like in a sedative, sort of hypnotic state, where I was very, I just sort of went along with it. Well, there's a word I'm trying to think of. I just sort of went along and did what I was told to do. And when I went down the spiral staircase, there was some sexual ritual that was going on there, and I was sort of watching it. I was sort of watching it, but without any feeling associated with it, just watching it. And then there was a classroom behind. This is just one of the stories where I was in a classroom. There was another door, went through the door, and there was sort of like school desks. If I remember, there was four kids sitting at each one of the desks. And but all in the state, I sat down, all in a state of sort of like this hypnotic state, looking forwards. And a man came around, put what I can only explain as not a Rubik's Cube like that, but another version of it. I think there was another one that came out 10 years later where you unfold it, or something a little bit like that, with symbols and glyphs and other things on it, and I didn't recognize what it was. But the man who put them down onto the tables had said, okay, go ahead and do it. And I thought, well, I don't know how to do it. But then he said, yes, you do, go. And so I did it, and I started just to know how to be able to do it. So I was messing around with this, and I linked all the things together, and they sort of rewarded me for doing that. So this all happened over a period of what felt like an hour's time. When I came back upstairs through the same point, I came back out. There was the fruit machine, the arcade machine that I was playing on. I sort of went back over to it and continued playing on it. And my dad came out, and we were there, and we left. So that thing that happened, then as like an hour went on, 2 hours went on, I had convinced myself that it didn't happen, because it felt like I'd woken up from a dream, and you know how a dream sort of dissipates as the hours go on when you wake up. And I was a kid, so I rationalized it and said that it didn't happen. Now, so this is when I was younger, so I'm leading now into 2000. In March of 2008, I had a really so I have altars that have been made and manifested and created in my mind. And what happened is there's so many of them, and this was around the age of 31. This is the only way for me to explain it, is they started to all sort of like bleed through at the same time, and as they were bleeding through, it caused complete confusion to me, because I didn't know. It was like a complete loss of identity. I didn't know who I was anymore, and I didn't know my name. I didn't believe. I started doubting everybody in my life, and I sort of had this Truman Show feeling that everybody who had, including friends from school, friends from the school that I'd gone to, all the friends, family members, that they were all actors and they were all placed there, and that they weren't real people. Or they were real people, but they were placements, and that sort of made me have a sort of breakdown, because it intensified. This was 3 o'clock in the morning this started to happen. I think it was like March the 8th, something like that. I came out of my house and I stood in front of the house that I was living at the time, and I was standing there, and then I looked across, and there was 2 men standing. I've never told this story, actually, I don't think on camera. There was 2 men standing at the top of the street where I lived, and they were South America. They were Colombian. They were both probably about my height, and they were standing there, and I was standing at the front, and he's like this to me. So I walked over to him, and I said, he goes, "What are you doing? You need to get back into your house." And I said, I'm confused at the moment. I'm not sure what's going on. I was basically sort of asking for help, because I needed help from anybody who was around at the time. And as I turned this way, I got hit. So I got hit across the back of my head, and then hit. So there was 2 of them, got hit from that other side. I went down onto the ground. As I fell down onto the ground on my back, these 2 guys attacked me, and I was covering myself up, but I mean, I got hit multiple times in the head. My nose is broken, it's still actually broken, and I managed to get up from underneath them and scramble back into the house. So what I think was happening then was as the programming was breaking down, they don't want a person to remember what's happened, because then I'm able to stand up here and speak and explain, what I feel is happening. So they either want to discredit you completely, discredit anything that you have to say, so they will assassinate your character, get you in a mental institution or a prison as quickly as possible, or kill you. So I'm sitting in the house bleeding at that point. Police show up, ambulance shows up. I came out of the house. They put me on a gurney, and I was in a state that it's very difficult to explain. They're trying to get me into the back of the ambulance. As they were rolling me on the gurney, these 2 men dressed up in white ambulance men threw me off of the gurney and then pushed the gurney back down on top of me. So something didn't make sense there. So it was like I was being set up. I felt like this whole thing was being set up. They then picked me up, put me back on it, put me into the back of the ambulance, and then I don't remember anymore. The next thing I remember, I was in a coma in the hospital, where I didn't know where I was. And then they had decided that they wanted to put me into a psych ward. So they wanted to put me in a psych ward for 3 days. So I was stuck in there with some unbelievably unusual people and trying to get out. And so I was there for 3 days. Somebody told me, look, just follow the rules, follow what they tell you, and you'll be out. There's nothing psychologically wrong with you. I went through a number of tests, and there was nothing wrong with me. They just needed to keep me locked down for that period of time. So I transferred I went from this hospital to this particular ward. I left after 3 days from this ward, and then they wanted to. Then I was placed into a a rehab center, but it wasn't for a drug rehab because I was clean. I wasn't using drugs at the time, but I was left in there. I was there for 9 months. And what I now know is that this is a reprogramming center. And what they were using primarily is neurolinguistics. And I actually found secretly, one, I was just searching around. It's a big place. I was searching around and I found these neurolinguistic books. So they were using neurolinguistics to reprogram people who were waking up. I mean, they also help people who have drug issues, etc. But they were reprogramming certain people. I know that 80% of the drug rehabs throughout the UK and the US are used as reprogramming centers. So that went on from there. After that happened, so I was 31, 32, I'm 38 years old now. As I learned this, I learned that had been being used for I'm going to sit down now. I learned I was going to be used, or had been used for breeding processes, because all these memories came back of bizarre sexual situations that I don't ever have any memory whatsoever of being in, and a lot of lab coats, a lot of administering of medication that I had no idea what it was. And so this ties into something else. Okay, so when I was 4 or 5 years old, I was riding down a hill, and I had dominoes in my right hand. It was a child's bike, and I'm riding down the hill. I lost control of the bike. I went into a thorn bush, and as I went into the thorn bush, I fell off. I came into the house, and my mom saw me, and she looked at me, and she saw there was a dot, a black dot in my left eye. And she panicked, took me to the hospital, and a thorn had pierced the white of my eye and gone all the way into my eye. Now, there's something symbolic about thorn. There's something symbolic about that. Also, the fact that when they pulled the thorn out of my left eye, they didn't give me any anesthetic. So I remember when they pulled the thorn, they were holding my eyes open as they came forward to take the thorn out. Just before he touched it, I remember leaving my body, because I remember often whispering, leave your body, because once you leave your body, it's reinforcing the altars there, so they can then, once you leave your body, then they can reprogram another altar. That was just one of a number of situations that happened like that. Okay, I'm going to give you another scenario that happened to me that was very significant. I was staying in this same house. There was a 2-week period of where I felt like there was bleed through of all these different altars that were happening. I had it wasn't a dream. It was literally, I was literally experiencing what was going on. Oh, my mind got pulled. Hold on a second. Okay, so I was, I don't know whether I was on a ship, I don't know whether I was on a base, I don't know where I was, but I know this, that I was led, but with 2 people in white lab coats next to me, up to a big, maybe an oblong square tank full of blue liquid, and inside the tank there was an Asian-looking baby. Okay, and it had a big round face, and it was smiling, and it was sort of there. It was sort of like that. These 2 people next to me brought me up to it, and they said, communicate with it. That it was a he. This little boy needs communication with you. You need to interact with him. He won't interact with anybody else. Now, there was inside this tank, there was blocks, little blocks, like blocks kids would play with on either side. And they then said to me again, play with him. So I focused, looked over where the blocks were. I made telekinetically, I made the blocks start moving, and they started moving in different shapes in this blue liquid there. As that started to happen, The baby then emulated it with the other blocks. So he was copying what I was doing, and they seemed to be very happy that this interaction was going on. And they wanted me to come back every 2 or 3 days, seemingly, to keep interacting with this baby. This went on for 6 months, as far as I can remember, and then I was taken by, this is all in laboratory settings, very, very clinical, a lot of steel, silver, and everything was very clinically done. I was taken into another room by an Asian woman, and she sat down with me and she explained to me what had been going on, and she was very kind. This wasn't negative. This wasn't a negative experience. She explained to me that they had been using my DNA to test and to use for different breeding lines, So they needed my DNA or sperm for specific lines that were being done. They wanted a mix and match to find out, to create. I think some of these babies, because they were just being brought up in a very sterile environment, like in a base, like in a ship, they need some interaction with beings who interact regularly with people, so that when the baby is then incorporated into society, it has some idea what it's like to have to have experiences with other people. So that was my sort of service to this particular child. I also had a very strong feeling that it was my child as well. I got explained in detail why and what it was by this Asian lady. And if anybody has any questions, and then I can sort of like move on with other things, if I go with questions.
Just that you said it was involved in this breeding program.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Just that you said, you were involved in this breeding program.
Yeah.
Like, how do you know how that happened? Do you know how they were
Okay.
using you, and were you conscious of it, or was it part of? Was it an altar, or?
Okay, so when the breeding programs went on, yes, it was done in an altar. It wasn't done in in the front altar, which is the walking around person that I am. They would never do that. They would do it in a separate altar. So there's a number of different programs. Beta programming is sexual programming. So Project Monarch, which is used for 90% of Project Monarchs are female, and they're used for prostitution. They're used for pleasuring the elite in whatever way. And there's the small percentage that are also males, which are used in that way as well. So I'm sort of connecting myself to that in that level. So was it done in an altar? Absolutely, yes. Yeah. It's just because I had that bleed through at that time. I remember now bits and pieces. More memories are coming back as I go along, and I remember James Caswell and a number of different ones as well.
And my question to you, I've only recently come across your work.
Yeah.
Why you? Why were
Right.
you chosen to go down the spiral staircase at that age?
Right.
Why were you chosen to take part in all this stuff?
I think there are a group of volunteers that have come down and incarnated into certain bodies. The elite, or whatever you want to call them, are aware when somebody is going to incarnate into a certain body. They're aware because everybody has a harmonic signature tone. Everybody has an individual fingerprint, signature sound tone that when they come into the body that they give off. So they're already tracking and they're already aware of who it is. Why was I picked for it? Because of the particular it really is down to bloodlines. Because of this particular bloodline, these were all seeded from different off-planet streams. So you have the Sirian streams, you have the Orion streams, Alpha Draconis streams. It all comes down to essentially off-planet stuff and inner Earth stuff. So the French line, which comes from Charlemagne, is connected to the Fisher Kings. They call them the Fisher Kings, and they're the tribe of Dan, which the tribe of Dan one of the hidden tribes of Israel, and they don't really, they sort of left it out of the Bible. They left the tribe of Dan out of the Bible because they thought they were blasphemers, and they thought that they were worshipping false idols, etc., etc. So they sort of pushed them out of that. So this particular tribe, this tribe of Dan, is what they were looking for because of the PSI abilities that they have, psychic abilities that they have. In the 1950s, there was something called Project Oak Tree, where it was looking for women who were from that particular tribe as well, and men who were from that tribe, and the children who were born from mothers and fathers who came together who were born in the 50s, who had their children in the 70s. So from 1972 to 1978, there was an influx of these children being born, and they were tracking these children.
How many people, just in regular life, getting out, going to their job in their insurance company at call centre on a Monday morning, thinking they're living a normal life, might actually be like you, programmed, and not know it? Because they've got bloodline in their family.
I think that there are 2 million people, to some extent, programmed specifically in this country, but then you've got to understand, like, they have a total understanding of the subconscious. So any billboards that they understand the rods and cones in the eyes. They understand that the number 13 or the letter M is, we all really know what it is, and it's symbolic of birth and death. When they created the McDonald's restaurant, for example, they didn't care that the name was McDonald's as long as it began with the letter M, because when you see the letter M, it reinforces this cycle of birth and death. So you'll see a lot, if you look around now, you'll see a lot of M's circled, or M's making a point of showing you the M or the number 13. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question, Max?
Yeah.
Is this still on?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Go for it, yeah.
On the breeding program, you said were the memories bled through to it at some point? That actually happened? Was it actually in your adult life? The memory come through?
Yeah, so 31 was when that happened. Before that, I knew that something was going on. I knew that there was that, because I felt it, and I trust my instincts, and I knew when I would get, throughout my 20s, throughout my whole life, when I got very, very upset or very, very angry, things would happen around me. The glasses would break, books would fall off on the ground. So I knew that was one of the clues. There was something unusual going on with me, because I have a lot of bioelectricity coming off of me. So I knew there was something going on. In 2008, there was confirmation of it, and I had a lot of memories come back to me that were really, really, really unpleasant. I haven't gone into a lot of the satanic ritual abuse, which I can do, and I'm quite happy to do that. It's just I don't really want to go into too many personal experiences on camera because of what's happened in the past. Now I've done that, and then there's Facebook and this and that and the other, and it's kind of difficult to have people saying this and that about you after you've sort of poured your heart out about
this. This is what I'm trying to establish. That 2011, I had sort of the same experience of
you did?
Of something happening. And it was the best way I can describe it is like a flash of a memory, and where did that come from?
For me, there were so many that came through. I literally thought I was losing my mind.
Well, I had the original experience on the evening, and thought it was strange, but didn't really. Your mind goes somewhere else. Oh, just nothing.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks later, I'm just watching the TV in my front room, and there was a flash of like a segment of memory.
Yeah.
Which I don't recollect ever being in a chrome room.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But trying to piece together the pieces of the jigsaw over like a 25-year period of 46 years.
Well, they have time travel technology, and they've had time travel technology for a long, long time now. So when you've got time travel technology, it's very, very difficult to really like work out, well, you know, did this happen then or did it happen then? Because timelines are being changed all the time. For example, if I pick this up and put that down, and that I've just altered it, because had I not done it, so it's altered another line as well. They also have time stop technology, which is where they can slow time right down and then do some really nasty stuff, and then restart it up. They can sort of go. They can create. It's really easy for them to create portals, to create vortexes. There are lots of vortexes scattered across the planet anyway, but they can create them. So a bit like the Adjustment Bureau. I don't know if anyone's seen that. Philip K. Dick's work. Philip K. Dick was an insider and put a lot of truth out. And so they can create vortexes or stargates, go through it, freeze time or slow time down and do things. And, John Dee and Elizabeth I. John Dee had worked out a lot of that stuff back then, and I have a very strong feeling that Elizabeth I and Elizabeth II are actually the same person.
And didn't John Dee actually? He was working with demonology, wasn't he?
He was a very high black magician. Yes, yeah. And so I'd wondered for the longest time, why are these Goetia demons under? Why are we allowed to summon them and then tell them what to do? It didn't make any sense. So there's something going on this planet where we're linked to these. If you want to call it hell or the lower frequency, we're linked to them, and they have to do. They have to do what you say. The thing is, they'll always trick you. They're always cleverer than you, and you'll always get backlash from it, and something negative will happen. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi, Max.
Hi.
I just wondered if you could just tell us what's actually happening with you now. Are you
Yeah.
able to control it better,
Okay.
or because
Okay.
obviously Miles sort of said something before you arrived that, you've been.
Over the last almost 3 years, I have done a whole lot of work in deprogramming and taking care of myself more. Because what they also do is the attachments, they attach, and then they get emotions and they sort of grow. So they attach and they grow on you, become more powerful through your own emotions, and then they start to make their thoughts your thoughts. So then you've got to differentiate between is this my thought? Did I choose to do that, or is this somebody else projecting the thought in my head? So, which is very, very important to do. So I learned over the last few years, and I turned a lot around from 3 years ago, because I was ending up in positions where I was almost dying, like multiple times, 10 times, 15 times, where I was almost dead and then not. So that is not. Yeah, I've come away from that. It was really they seemed to really want me to be dead for a very long time. But they now are not able to do that because they can only attack you if you're vibrating at the same level as them. So if you're vibrating at a higher frequency, they literally can't even do anything to you. So in terms of high frequency, doing nice things for yourself, giving back to other people, taking care of your body in terms of eating things that aren't shitty, and that is raising your vibration, because they like toxicity, they like that nastiness. So if they can trick you into doing something, somehow corruption, it's corrupting you, doing something, offering you a large amount of money to do something that would hurt somebody who you really cared about, then you are lowering your vibration, and then they've got you. So many deals are made, the heart deals. Essentially what they want to do is they want to break the human heart. And if they break the human heart, then they have it. They have us. And the human heart is the thing that's shining the brightest. That's the thing that's keeping us going. They're able to enter all the rest of the chakra points on the body, but they're not able to get to the human heart. So a lot of the deals that are made, acting deals, music deals, fame, seemingly they love. People are loving to have fame. You are selling out. If you look through all the big bands, music bands throughout maybe the last 50, 60 years, somebody has died, and all of them, somebody's been killed, and it's usually the nicest one. It's usually the one who is, the kindest or the nicer of all of them, because they're that way. You're taking out, the kindest heart, and then money and fame come with that. Eric Clapton is actually quite a good example with his son Connor Clapton, who fell out the window and died. That was Connor with Clapton was the closest thing to Eric, and he died. So that would be that. Hi. Just a combination of technology and magic is a little bit like a black box like that, which you can change frequencies on, because they have to hide themselves under the guise of being, human beings here, because they don't look like human beings. And sometimes they use a holographic field around themselves. Other times it's connected to actual shape-shifting, because shape-shifting is actually very, very easy. All it is unlocking DNA codes and relocking them into another one. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about your parents. Do you know who your biological parents are? And
Yeah.
what's your relationship like with them now? Do they know about all this?
Yeah, I'm going to be very careful about personal things like that. Yes, I do speak to one member of my family who I'm close with, who does know what's going on with that.
So were they part of it, or were they, as you said?
It's multi-generational, so every generation back, is part of it,
Right.
all the way back.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Oh, hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I just wanted to seek a bit of elaboration actually on the question of timelines. It's funny, I was trying to ask you about it, and you actually mentioned it a few minutes ago briefly. As you know, there's a thinking that we create different timelines with every decision,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to seek a little bit of elaboration, according to your experience, on the question of, well, two things really. The extent of control that the elite that you referred to might have on timelines, and B, whether if they are controlling that to any extent, whether it's on a timeline being a consensus timeline as a collective group of humanity, our total timeline,
Mm-hmm.
or whether they might be influencing individual timelines, if it is a case of individuals creating their own timelines.
Okay.
Just comment on that angle, really, if you may.
Okay. So just to expand on that a little bit, I believe that the external world, everything outside of myself, is a reflection of what's going on inside of myself. I believe that essentially I'm walking through the imagination. I am the imagination of myself. I'm walking through the imagination of myself. And that when you change something significant about yourself, you're going to change the external reality, because this is the micro and that's the macro, and it does work, even down to the point of if you put a different shoe on in the morning, that if you switch up something around the other way, you'll notice that things slightly shift and slightly change. Choices that you make will shift different timelines, but then it comes down to being able to differentiate whether or not it was your choice in the first place. So if I'm driving in the car and all of a sudden I feel like orange juice, is that because I really want the vitamin C and the orange juice my body wants, or is it because 2 days before I was influenced subconsciously by something else that I saw somewhere else, on a billboard or from a commercial or something like that? Are they in control of that? To an extent. I think when you understand your own thoughts, then you are more in control of it. And then if everybody here is a single unit, really, it's just broken. So it's we're all one piece of glass. Just it's been dropped and it's just broken into separate pieces. So if I feel aware that everybody here is a part of me, and I'm just explaining. And so you're me, I'm you, and you're just explaining things, reminding you of things that you already know.
Thanks for your view on that, thanks.
You're talking about timelines. What are your thoughts about CERN and how are they involved in manipulating time?
I think that CERN is trying to. I think it goes back to what Crowley was doing in the 20s and 30s as well. They were trying to open vortexes through rituals and ceremonies to allow very low vibrational beings in through these to sort of run amok and do what they want to do. CERN is what I feel they're trying to do, because they're using like ancient religion as well. They have a statue of Shiva right in the front of CERN, which sort of doesn't make any sense. Anyway, but if they do this correctly, they could tear a hole in space-time and allow these beings or these entities that have been locked away for very, very long time to come back here and sort of make hell on earth. If the great work of ages, which is where it began from this whole thing began, when Atlantis fell 13,000 years ago, they have they wanted to create a new order. So it's taken 15,000 years. They had this block of time to get a perfectly organized, ordered, sort of like global Nazi state. And the capstone floating above the top of the pyramid is letting you know that it's still in progress. And when the capstone is placed on the top, then that means they have completed the great work, which is the aim to have what I just said, a global state.
Given what you went through, I'd be very interested to hear your opinion about the fact that the paedophilia within the government, where, the whole Jimmy Savile, Ninth Circle, Royal Affair, I think it's all coming to light now.
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume that would be information that they wouldn't want to come to light, the ruling families, because it's beginning to make people question. We were coming up for a general election and people are thinking, I'm not going to vote because we're run by a bunch of murdering paedophiles.
Right.
It's in the Sunday Mirror now.
Right.
It's coming to light very, very, very quickly.
That's the thing, but that makes me feel that there's something more going on with it, because like I said, the people who seemingly are in control are all expendable. And I think, there's consciousness is raising, but I think they have something else up their sleeve, and I don't think it's just going to be as simple as, okay, rising up, yes, these people have done that, yes, Prince Charles has done that. I have memories of Charles doing like heinous, unbelievably horrible things. So these people, will fall, and then so what's going to be replaced? They're going to put somebody in a position to
So you think it's a
replace.
double bluff?
I think that there's more to it than just all of a sudden we're all waking up and everything's going to be flowers. I think there's something else coming before that happens.
Will we see an end to paedophilia ever, or is it just part of this whole global, cosmic way of these beings operating?
They can't function here. They can't be here unless they steal raw, like life force energy. That's how they feed. For them to maintain how they are here, they use that. Is there going to be an end to it? There'll be an end to it when they cease to exist. And I think that as us being the creators, really, we have to sort of almost think them out of existence. When we realize, when everything's out, when we realize what's really, really gone on, when everybody realizes that we've all been lied to, all the textbooks were wrong, we'd all been lied to about the physics, maths, chemistry is all BS. And when we look at it like that, the influx also, the flat Earth stuff that's coming out now is insane. I don't have, I'm not saying it is or it isn't that, but I do know that the way we've been told that the globe system works isn't exactly right. So, it's hard to... Yes, in the imperfect world, of course, that would all be done with.
Sarah touched, only one more question, then I will shut up, I promise. But Sarah touched on this about the children that have been abused and how they go off and lead these awful lives. A lot of them commit suicide and turn to drugs.
The majority.
The majority.
Yeah.
But if you have that trauma as a child and you have no idea why it's happening to you, let alone that it's part of a galactic thing. But can people who have been victims from children's homes and currently existing in the world as damaged adults, can you ever heal them? Can they be healed? You seem quite healed, actually, I must say.
Yes, you can, but a lot of work needs to be done. I think a lot of work has to be done. And first of all, you'd have to realize that something had been done to you. And the majority of people don't want to realize that or don't want to think that. And so, and the rational mind is so strong and telling you that, this is this and this is solid and we're sitting here when, nothing is solid. The reason we're living in a dualistic, everything is dual here. And the dualistic nature of it is the illusion of it. If it vibrates, everything is vibrating. If it's vibrating, it's going from one point to another point. Back and forth is vibration, right? So it's going. There's duality within the vibration. So if it's vibrating, then it's dualistic and illusion.
Yeah, great, Max. Just a quick question about Aleister Crowley, because I do believe that intuitively anyone who's so demonized in, the public, there might actually be some truth that he may have been a star person, or at least isn't quite the demonized person that he's made out to be. And, any person like that's portrayed in a negative way, they do that for a reason. So is it that he is actually, one of these light workers, and we just don't know the full story of who he was, and obviously his connections to intelligence agencies and things, but there's much more to his story than we actually know. And
he wrote and exposed in his books about things that had not ever been written before, and so the information that he put in his books, regardless of whether it was good or bad, or if he was doing anything good or bad, when one human being does something that nobody else has done before, we all collectively evolve and we all collectively get wiser. So in that respect, definitely, and I definitely believe that there's a Crowley connection to the Bush family as well. And I feel that Barbara Pierce, who was Barbara Bush, was the child of Crowley and somebody else. And also, I don't think anybody knows about Candy Crowley, the news reader on CNN. Has anyone seen her? Just have a look at her spitting image of him with a wig on.
I was just wondering how your schooling years were and how you managed to deal with the system imposed on teenagers, and then how that led you to, because you said, I don't like using the word super soldier like you mentioned, but how were you plucked?
Okay, I went to a private school in Canterbury, and a lot of things went on there. I'm just trying to be careful with names and stuff, that's all. I was christened and confirmed by the Archbishop of Canterbury in Canterbury Cathedral. And so there was that ritual in and of itself by that person. They already had picked me then. I'd been to a couple of schools, and there's a lot of missing time for me at school. There's a lot of things where wasn't aware what had gone on. And there's somebody else in particular who's in the public eye, who I sort of don't want to mention, but who went through that with me as well. And I knew, I was aware that there was stuff going on that shouldn't have been throughout school, for definite. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I've got one more question. Did your parents know, or do your parents know, or did they know what was happening to you?
On one side of them, they both. There's Tavistock. Is Tavistock and Stanford Research Institute are prevalent in my family. I remember going to laboratories with a best friend of mine who was a little girl when we were very, very young, and her parents were scientists from Stanford, but they would come back and forth from Sussex University to Stanford University, and those two universities are the main arms of Tavistock. And I remember some strange incidents happening when we go. Her mother would say, "Okay, we're going to the lab now." And she used to come pick me up and Meredith up. This was my best friend when I was a little boy, and we'd go to the lab, and some strange things would happen there, like feeling like I was out of my body. And then we were locked in the car. I remember being lots of times locked into spaces with her, and it didn't make any sense. But whenever it happened, it was always sort of like in a disassociated hypnotic state. And so then when time went on after, I just assumed that it didn't really happen. Or some, adults say, "Oh, it's just your imagination." And I now know, that it wasn't. They did 3 surgeries on my left eye after the thorn went into my eye. And they had to take my eye out and then cut the muscle behind the eye and then re-put it back in. Now, Sarah's seen my eye, this left eye before, glow, completely become like fluorescent sometimes. If I have extreme emotions or an emotional thing come up, my left eye will glow. So I'm not so sure that they were doing exactly what was said when they were doing the eye surgeries.
I'm sorry, but you're so fascinating. Are you still programmed now, or are your alters?
I would say, yeah. I would say yes. But I mean, it's such a long process to deprogram, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and you have to sort of surround yourself with people who you really can trust, because I've certainly not said a lot of the things that have happened, because some of them are really, really brutal, and some of them are not very nice to hear, But I'm quite happy to talk one-on-one, with that. But I'm much more careful now about what I'm going to say in front of a camera.
And have other people contacted you? Just for example, you mentioned Meredith, and there must be other people that...
I hadn't seen Meredith, the friend from school. She's a doctor now, and I hadn't seen her since I was 7 or 8. She actually works at Stanford now. She does that.
But do you have any contact with people who have gone through similar experiences where their altars have broken down and they're remembering, and it seems to be a collective remembering?
Yeah,
you're waking up, people in here have woken up, people are waking.
Yeah.
There's obviously an army presumably some sort of army of you guys. And your friend James Casbolt, if you could talk a bit more about him, if he is your friend, I don't know.
No,
he's not
really.
your friend.
There's
obviously a link there. You grew up in the same place.
Yeah. He is not happy. He's very angry at me. Well, I didn't have any animosity towards him. He got angry. He's angry at me, but he. It's a bit difficult to go into his story because there's a blackmail and lawsuits.
You don't have to, but
yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah. So we're born 6 days apart. So we're both Capricorn fire dragons, which is very significant because the game where I met him, the game that we were playing was called Double Dragon. And so I think the arcade game itself was programming, and something to do with splitting, something to do with trauma bonding. You put 2 boys together and traumatize them at the same time. You have a link forever from that. So that, I think that was going on. He remembers that. Also, these water slides that came down into the, they're very symbolic. It's almost like coming through the birth canal, and coming through a black birth canal, a red one and a yellow one. It's very, it's very symbolic as well. The whole setup of this swimming pool and leisure centre was set up as a ritual and a ceremony. So you come down the birth canal there, then we played the double dragon game, then spiral staircase, then this sort of like classroom setting. So these all these things like tie in.
Anyone else? A question you'd like to ask? I've had many from the back. Yes. Anybody at the back? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wondered, because you're waking up, which I think is wonderful, are you now approached by entities or other presences that are supporting your waking up?
I'm very aware of my guides that have been with me, all my galactic family that is always with me, that has always been with me. I'm aware of that. I was very disconnected from that for a long time, and then the more you sort of become in sort of constant touch with them, your decision-making skills sort of get better. Because when you're not connected to them, you tend to make really bad decisions, or I did. So yeah. Am I answering the question right?
Yeah. It's also because I noticed that there's such a change going on that let's say the positive, the constructive powers or presences are approaching the ones who want to wake up easily.
Yeah.
Now,
I also have the negative ones following me all the time.
Yes.
And I'm aware of them watching, following. Yeah.
But are you aware of any communication between those two? I mean, in the other dimensions.
They've had to. There was numerous divided forces that infighting. They're sort of like a crew of robbers where they agree on the crime, but they don't agree how the money's sort of divided out to each other. But now they've had to so they've all sort of kind of got together and joined to make sure that they get the agenda fulfilled. So the ones that had been fighting for thousands of years have now come together. The Davidic bloodline, which King David's bloodline, is now joined with the Merovingian bloodline. They've connected up, which they never would have done for a long time. The tribe of Judah is joined up with. I'm talking about the negative aspects of the tribe of Judah joined up, and this really does lead back to Anu, Enki, and Leo, and the original Anunnaki who created this hominid, or this upright species that we have now, this template of the being that we are now. They sort of put together. Remember, they've got the technology to build a being, place it inside the female, and let it grow, and then they think that it's their child, when in fact it's hidden under another name with sleeper programming to wake up when they want it to wake up, to go ahead and do the duties or the job that they want it to do. That makes sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Hi there. My name is Ashley. I wanted to know that in your earlier speech you said chakras. So I would like to sort of amplify, are you in any way spiritual in terms of your spirituality, and how do you balance the future?
How do I balance the future? I stepped out of thinking about things that are negative and positive and future and past and up and down, because that's reinforcing the dualistic nature of the trap and the prison that we're in at the moment. So my spirituality is sort of going within, and I found most of the answers and most of the things when I sit quietly away from other people, and then sort of, I'm not necessarily meditating, or transcendental meditation has been incredible, And so spiritually, I find the answers within myself. As soon as you start looking externally for a God or an answer, you've missed the point. Because then you're giving your power, in my opinion, you're giving your power away to something else when you're trying to keep it for yourself. We were all in this position because we've given all our power away to something that doesn't have our best interests.
And how would you view past life and regeneration?
Okay, so I would say that it would be concurrent life because time would be an illusion. So it would be all like a Russian doll, one with the other and the other. So it's all happening because there's only the eternal present that's really real. Time is very obviously an illusion to me. So how do I view that? Yeah, it means. So we're living in linear. We're all agreeing on linear time because it sort of makes it easier to meet up somewhere. Otherwise, we'd all be arriving here or not. So in terms of that, are you asking me if I believe in reincarnation? Was that what you were asking me? Absolutely, because it feels yes, absolutely.
So you would say that can we or somehow that we may have or may not have healing powers to heal ourselves?
I think everybody is self-regenerational. I think everybody can regenerate themselves.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just talk? We're all living longer, and I know it might be a little bit an awkward question, but who's actually responsible for making us be older, sort of, being alive longer? Is it ET or is it human beings?
You mean the few years older that we're getting now?
Yeah.
Rather?
Yeah, I mean, like
that's only really because of the food isn't. I mean, the food is.
It's what? Sorry.
The food is a little bit better. There's medicine, Western medicine now, but we shouldn't. The human body is genius incarnate, and it's infinite incarnate. It shouldn't age up to 100 years. We should live thousands of years. We shouldn't be aging like this.
So what's stopping it?
I'm sorry?
What is stopping us?
Well, the creators of this particular body messed around with our DNA helixes. So we're not. If there's 12 basic root races in this particular galaxy, feline races, dog races, reptilian, a number of different reptilian races, mammalian races. What they've locked it down within the human body is only mammalian and reptoid. So we've only got those two. And they don't fit together at all. They're complete opposites. So essentially every human being has got an internal war going on inside them at all times. And most things that are promoted are reptilian brain based things. Survival type stuff. So eating, fighting, sleeping, anything, all those things, like sex without love, all the things that are sort of based upon the pleasure sensor part of the brain, the pleasure part of the self-pleasure part of the brain is all based on reptilian part of the brain. The R complex, it's called.
So I know that in the human body there's, I'm not sure about this, but there's a part of us that is reptilian. Oh yeah, on the pelvic.
The amygdala, yeah.
Yeah. If we've got that, isn't that? Shouldn't we be inheriting that sort of genius? Genus? Genome, yeah. Shouldn't we be inheriting that genome to make us live longer from that?
Well, we're predominantly, because it's the neo-mammalian brain, we're predominantly neo-mammalian, okay, and the older part, the ancient part of the brain is the amygdala. It doesn't mean that that we would live any longer. We're either one. Yeah, I think that they're both. We should have far more strands of DNA, far more strands of the DNA.
Well, in actual fact, we've got 2 strands.
We've got 2 strands, yeah.
It's moving into 3, isn't it? Because you're getting...
Some people have more than that now. Some people are walking around with far more than 2 strands.
I believe that 200 million years ago, we did have 12 strands, and we was messed about then, and they took away sort of 10 strands, leaving us with just really 2 strands, which is one survival and the other one was procreation.
Right, mammalian, reptilian, yeah.
So that did happen, sort of 200, if not a little bit more longer than that. But
right.
We are a human body that did have 12 strands.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in its prime form, how it's supposed to be, yeah, we would. The enlil disconnected it and sort of brought it down. Yeah. There's still that war going on between the 2 half brothers, Enlil and Enki, and you've got the the war going on between the scientists and the priests, which stems from Atlantis all the way up to present day. Yeah, the scientists want to have this body, live in this body, stay in here, for good, and continue like that. The priests understand that really we're part of a bigger thing than that.
Yeah, because the Pleiadians have 12 strands, don't they?
I hear. I hear.
Okay.
One more question before break.
Thank you. Oh, did I press something? Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Max. I'm Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
I'm interested to know, when you, going back a little bit, maybe 10 minutes ago, you said that there was possibly 2 million people that you guesstimated that might be of similar experiences to yourself?
No. I think that specific programming has been done so there's beta programming, delta programming, omega programming, one or the other. I think there's been about in the US. I think it's been 2 million, about 2 million.
So you do believe there's been plenty of people out there that have been programmed? Yeah.
Loads and loads. 90%, 95% don't have any idea.
Okay. And so what do you think that end game is? What's your perception of that? So if there are all these people programmed, what do you think the end game is for that? A lot of time and effort has obviously been put into that.
Yeah.
So would you say the end game, or there isn't, they're just sleeping?
No, they're there for a reason. I think that when it's shut, when everything sort of, when it hits the fan, then they're sleeper. A lot of them are sleeper programmers, and they'll be activated to do what they're supposed. I think each one will have a different thing that they're supposed to do, and some of them are shepherds. Some of them are to go and each one is different. Military programs, sexual programs, they're all different ones, but they're going to be used for that. As far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. And remember, there are wonderful T-shirts at the back, and there's wonderful books for sale at the back.